All right, good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. It is Thursday, October the 9th, 2025. It's a Fakeologist show. It's a joint with IPS joint. This is where we hook up together and we collaborate a little bit. Now, that song in the background, just for all you ancient listeners of the Fakeologist show, we go back to 2012. And that is a song I picked for no real reason other than I liked it. It's called Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty. And I didn't realize that Alan Watt, another Canadian, had been using it for years because I never heard Alan Watt. So that was a coincidence. Other people think it was a deliberate signature by the Canadian Security Services, of which I am not a part. But anyway, this came up.
Of course you'd say that.
This version came up because I was following another YouTuber, because I do spend a lot of time on YouTube these days. And this was served up to me by the YouTube gods. And this is a 4 or 5 piece live band of children in grade 6. So this is someone who's 12 years old singing, and the band is...
Wait, what?
They're all 12 years old. So this is Jerry Rafferty. And the reason why it was served up is because at the very end, there'll be a guitar solo by a British child named Jake, where he shreds a guitar like you've never heard a 12-year-old before. So I spent an hour watching all their videos. And as a fakeologist, I have to wonder, are they real? But by all accounts, they seem to be real. That this is not auto-tune. This is not AI. This is real sound. And these 12-year-olds can really play, which is pretty amazing. So I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And yeah, pretty amazing. So it's Baker Street by the Greystones. You can look them up. I'll put a link. Anyway, let's say hi to our panel here. That's enough music. Tim Osmond, hello.
Hey, thank you for having me. And this is a great idea, a weekly program, whether we stick with Thursdays or do Mondays.
Yes.
It's going to be a weekly thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Because you've Rezel Unra says, who is IPS? I think you're on the IPS YouTube channel, so I think you know who IPS is. But yeah, that's a great idea. I appreciate it. I'm off next week, so we can't do it next week. But definitely the week after, maybe we'll do Mondays or something. But yeah, Tim Osmond is probably one of the leading fakeologist type researchers in the world. He spends a ton of time at it, and I really enjoy his show. And you put a lot of time into it. So if I can help in any way promote your message, that's my work done. Okay, we also have Frank the Salt Guy. I think he's been away for a while. He's back. Frank, say hello.
Hello, ni hao.
Ni hao, and of course CSL, Curvy Sexpert Lady. He's from our Discord. He's a big supporter of the Fakeologist Network, and he's got a great mic and great insight. So hello to CSL.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk again with IPS.
Well, exactly. You guys could probably do all the work. I'll just sit back and field the phone calls. You guys can call in. Or you can join the studio if you want to talk to Tim Osmond. He's definitely the leading researcher on the Charlie Kirk hoax. I think he also has said in some of his past broadcasts, there's no point in listening to other people who don't see this as a completely staged military-style event. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Tim Osmond, I agree with that. So
that's accurate. All the rabbit trails begin in Normieville with the basic assumption of the story that they set, the mainstream version, and they dead end in Trueville. They never get to the point where they can call the thing fake, and they become very immersed in these stories. And I'm like, that's just deeper programming, and it is a waste of time if you're taking it literally and not just studying it like we are. But I also wanted to point out, CSL handed over. We have a Reddit. So I'm now a moderator at Reddit/AutoHoax. So if anybody uses Reddit, that's another place where I'll be posting content. And it's not just me. For new listeners, the IPS think tank goes back to 2017. And as a group of researchers, we've been pulling together our perspectives, and I describe us as a fake news wood chipper because we do go through these things methodically but thoroughly, and we tend to find out if it's real or fake as quickly as possible while remaining, skeptically objective about it.
I think that's cool. Reddit is I can't believe Reddit, which is just a very high-end forum, which is just forum software, which I run at fakeologistforums.com, is a I don't know if it's a billion-dollar company, but it is a very volatile tech company of which I play around with in the options world. I can't even believe it's worth what it's worth. And I'm assuming it's because it has a large real or not real user base. It just blows me away. This seems like the 2000 tech bubble all over again, where these companies really have no value, but they're worth billions. But if you say that it's worth following, I'm gonna go there, and I'm just looking now. I'm gonna show this tab here on Reddit. One thing about Tim Osme always is innovating and finding new ways to spread the word, and this might be a really good way.
And I believe that the posts that I have here are done by automation. I try to use bots so that even though it looks like I'm spread thin, I'm really not. I'm just trying to make use of all the tools available. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the terminology that we're using is the standard for media analysis. And we don't want this to be co-opted by controlled opposition. And so I think it's really important to define this new branch of media, this new platform. And what separates us from really the rest is that we're not buying the mainstream headlines and using that as our starting point, but we're kind of stepping back. And that's been our approach thus far. And the Charlie Kirk thing just bears out how I think good our process is compared to the alternatives, where it's just a bunch of confusion.
Now, getting back to Reddit, because I think this could work really well if they let this continue. I know there are Reddit rules and whatnot. I see Reddit rules. Will this forum survive? Because if this gets big, Reddit could be a real accelerant to your message.
I think it will survive. And one of the things that I've been emphasizing is that we're not doing conspiracy theory, nor are we political necessarily, but this is more philosophical. It really is, because we're doing what I call media deconstruction, media fakery analysis. It should not be lumped in with the reactive politics or the politics that are trying to get people to do things in the real world, because I don't advocate that. I totally stand for inactivism. If you're on the streets protesting, you're essentially a puppet, and it's like an asylum. You're not going to get anywhere by rounding up the patients. The orderlies will remain in control.
Okay, well, I'm excited because I think other community members have used Reddit quite successfully and grown it. So now, Curvy Sexford Lady, you've been a Reddit moderator for a while. What do you think of this, and what's the potential of it?
Well, I think that there's quite a bit of potential, as Tim Osmond has suggested. I created this subreddit because it was available, right? So anyone can create a subreddit. I created the subreddit Auto Hoax because it was available, and I was just looking to confirm. It's over in the sidebar on January 5th, 2021. I was aware of Tim Osmond and IPS, Infinite Plane Society, Infinite Plane Radio, for some years prior to that. I attribute my awareness of the concept of auto hoax to Tim Osmond. So it's been an extreme pleasure to be on the show, beyond just my guest host capacity that you've invited me, Ab, but that here I am with someone that has even taught me how to think about the way things work. And Tim Osmond has been that person, and I'm glad we were able to connect and get it taken care of. It's sort of been dormant. He has posted off and on, and I do think there's quite a bit of potential. I agree with you that the forums of Reddit are just like the forums of old. but Reddit itself is a very trafficked website.
Yeah.
Whether we know whether or not the people that are involved are real people or bots or otherwise, Reddit itself has already made an agreement, with AI companies, OpenAI and ChatGPT, to consume its content. That I think that's irrelevant to the fact that when real people like myself and Tim Osman and others, included those in the Discord that are part of Fakeologists, get along and we figure out how to subvert the system. And what I mean is Reddit itself does have a quite restrictive, and especially became more restrictive during the COVID days, uh, terms of service policy. Well, we can navigate around that and see how it goes. And so I do agree with Tim Osman that this is potentially an opportunity for greater exposure to the way that people should be thinking, not religious like, not otherwise, but the perspective that people should start having from even a base fakeologist perspective. That's my thoughts.
It says here the market cap of Reddit is $38 billion. I thought I was reading the charts right. That's unbelievable. Where's it? So this is a huge company to be on. I think it's a big deal. So I'll promote it. I'll promote it to the best of my ability, and I think it could be bigger than Substack. Let me just say, Tom Freeze put a $5 US super chat into the Tim Osman IPS YouTube. So Tim Osman,
thank you very much, Tom Freeze. Appreciate the fuel in the tank. And the strategy behind getting on something like Reddit is visibility, because there will come a point where the media has to confront this new demographic who they can't just label as conspiracists or truthers, or QAnoners. Like, they've been basically impugning the motives of anybody that doesn't trust mainstream. They've demonized conspiracy theorists for a long time. But this CK event has revealed that there's a lot of people who aren't buying into the alternatives, the second shooter theories, the exploding microphone. There's a lot of people who are thinking Charlie Kirk's alive, probably in New Zealand somewhere. And that group has never had a platform before. And that's what we're building. And so when that term goes viral, because I think it will at some point, we need the people who are casually looking into it to find themselves in the midst of all of those people who are already up to speed on this. We don't want the media to try, like they did with the flat earth thing, create these caricatures to dismiss something, because this is really not so dismissible, but it can be if we don't, take the language before it's co-opted.
Okay, sounds good. Frank, do you have any opinion on this? And another donation, by the way, from Reality Witness, $4.99. Great panel on the show tonight. Well, I hope we can deliver. Thank you, Reality Witness.
No, I can only agree with what's been said already. I mean, if you can maintain a thread on such a well-known channel, that would be astonishing. It would be an achievement of next order magnitude, as far as I'm concerned.
Linda Curtis says it's the bloody guardrail. Now, this is a term that Tim Osman invented, I think, and I've heard it in the last show or two of his. So what is, Tim Osman, can you explain the bloody guardrail?
Yes.
Or the guardrail?
So the guardrail concept is something that you now hear it being used when they talk about AI to prevent it from providing certain things that you prompt. So they have the concept in line there, but I've used the term since like 2020 to describe conspiracy narratives that prevent you from calling it fake, that make you stop short of that. And oftentimes the one thing that prevents someone from saying, okay, it's all fake, is they assume somebody died. And that's pretty much an appeal to emotion when you get the story that is a tragedy. And that catches a lot of people. And if people can just get over the assumption that people die in psyops, which they don't, then they can look at the bigger picture more accurately. But a lot of people are held back by the bloody guardrail. And my contention is that the blood on the guardrail is corn syrup, like it's essentially fake.
Okay. Now,
So the blood is fake, right? The blood is meaningless. Nobody died, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. And think about how many people responded to the Charlie Kirk thing as though it were real because they saw blood. Now they're in a different universe than we are. They're chasing second shooters, they're listening to Candace Owens, and they're trying to figure out who killed this martyr. And now they have a votive candle. And it's like this guy was a character in a reality TV show on the world stage in a script that was written when he was still in diapers. He's not a real martyr. So it actually pulls people, it maintains them in this closed system where they're in an alternate reality. They're not even aware of the possibility that he's still alive. So that's why I call it the bloody guardrail, because that blood effectively guardrailed their interpretation.
Now, just so everyone knows, I still maintain my own forums at fakeologistforums.com. I created a short code to get to the Charlie Kirk topic and Fakeologist forums. It's shortfake.com/CK, as in Charlie Kirk. And I'm trying to collate the best audios, videos, many of which I put on FakeOTube. I can't put all of them because there's so many. I put the best podcasts. I put Tim Osmond's podcast at the bottom. So if you want a fairly comprehensive look of this event, I'm doing my best to keep this populated. I put Tim Osmond's latest show from Saturn Day or Sunday up, where he really breaks it down, and you really owe it to yourself to check it out and find out all the breakdowns, including I made a note or two where you were saying that Charlie Kirk and George Floyd characters had the same birthday. There's so many similarities. It's really they're mirror images, one for the left, one for the right. And you called woke, I think you called it woke left and maybe woke right, or those terms. Maybe you said something else.
That's actually it. What I said this back on September 11th or so, but the Atlantic just did a story on it a few days ago. Essentially, what George Floyd represents to the far or woke left is evidence of their oppression by systemic racism. And what Charlie Kirk as a martyr represents to the woke right is evidence of their oppression. And not by systemic racism, but by Israel, basically, because that's where the conspiracy theories lead. And both of these martyr stories appeal to the fringes of the political horseshoe in the exact way. And these are the active groups. So it's notable, and this is why I mentioned it, that Charlie Kirk's birthday is being celebrated on October the 14th as a national holiday. And then the Antifa organizers are saying, well, we need to have a national celebration for George Floyd's birthday at the same time. So they create these powder keg situations. They create these games of chicken. And this is, to me, this is the theater of Psywar at work. Manufactured martyrs, and one side thinks the other side's martyr is a villain. They see George Floyd as a villain if they're on the right. People on the left see him as a victim, and they see Charlie Kirk as a KKK racist and defender of their oppressor. So you can see this dynamic at work in these pairings. Like even the way they paired Daniel Penny and Luigi Mangione. You have the simultaneously vigilante and villain, depending on where you are is on this political horseshoe. But yes, another indicator that Charlie Kirk is an invented character.
But he was, unlike George Floyd, we did see someone in the flesh wandering around in real life playing the character. Is that true? Where we never saw a George Floyd?
George Floyd did have some previous photos at work, and there's some gross video in a hotel room. Like there's suggestions that he did exist. There are some people who think he is Stephen Jackson. I mean, I don't know where to go with that. There was some credible news that he had potentially had died a couple years before, and that was an older training video. So there's all kinds of theories about it. But the long and short of it, the event itself was a manufactured historic event, a turning point in history. And that's what they did with Charlie Kirk. And one of the things that this event has brought out is the need to look beyond just the visuals to analyze whether it's staged and fake or not, because the visuals are just going to improve. They're almost perfect now with AI. I'm constantly seeing totally believable stuff. And so when we're saying that this thing is staged, we're not just solely looking at the blood squirting out of his neck and saying, hey, that looks fake. No, we're looking at the whole surrounding context. And there are so many indicators of hoaxery without even touching on the predictive programming stuff, which is even wilder than I've seen for almost any one of these events. But this event has been very, I think, educational.
Kevin Mooring, this is a call-in show, so you can call in. I'll try and look at the chat as best I can. And Bach Precision said in the chat, they had a CK type character in the 60s who used to go to colleges to debate, and he was assassinated, Lincoln Rockwell. Are you familiar with that guy? I think that's been brought up by Fake Nukes Phil before.
No, that sounds intriguing. I'll have to look into it.
So history does repeat itself, or it rhymes, etc. Frank, you're older than all of us. Have you heard of Lincoln Rockwell?
No, I've heard of the Rockwell name, but he was an artist, wasn't he?
No, I think he was a right winger, actually. A right wing, maybe agitator. We can look
one idea that I have heard that I'm interested in getting a comment on is the idea that people are getting more, I guess, cottoning on to the antics of these fake events, and that's why they're accelerating the rate of them. There seems to be some, if you like, some urgency to the current behavior. Does anyone have any comments on that?
Well, do you have a comment on that, CSL? Are things accelerating? Do things need to be pattened down or tightened up to prevent people from sharing truth? Tim Osmond?
Well, I frequently
go ahead, Tim.
I frequently refer to the sea of irrelevance, where we're flooded with so much information that even if you have a few sane people calling it accurately, they get drowned out. And that's been the reason why I've said we have to break away from Trutherville, because they're hit with so many psyops and they interpret these things wrong that those of us who are accurately calling these things simulated events, we're not even platformed or acknowledged. So I do think, yes, I do think they're accelerating it, and I think that's strategy. What do you think?
CSL? Or we can take a call, or there was a call.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's take the call. But I do agree that's kind of what's happening. I do think that things are accelerating.
Caller, where are you calling?
Time, 1 minute.
Caller, where are you calling
16
from?
seconds.
And what's your name, please?
Hey, Fakeologist, is Jay from Texas.
Jay from Texas. Got a big panel,
Yeah.
so please direct your
Hey, how you
question.
doing? To ISP about the
IPS?
do you think, IPS, if you can see the similarities of what's going on today, because he's right, it's about, they're going to reveal it. I think they're going to reveal it willingly. You know, it's like, because like you said.
Sorry, what are they going to reveal? Sorry?
Oh, the method of their motive. You know, whether the method to the madness, like the Putin election in 2000. He did the same thing. He made all these political groups, and then he let the people know that he was running them all. So then the people didn't know what to believe. And it's like you said, history repeats itself, because that Lincoln Rockwell guy that you were talking about, I remember Fake Nukes still did.
Yeah, his name was
George
Lincoln Rockwell. 1918 to 1967 was a far-right activist, white supremacist, and anti-Semite who founded the American Nazi Party in 1959.
Yeah, he pushed that narrative. He was a paid actor. He was funded by the.
Well, he worked for he was a military Navy pilot, so he was part of the military.
There you go. There you go. It's just like all these other streamers, because what IPS was saying, or ISP was saying about how they're going to label us. I think they're going to try to label us terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Domestic terrorists.
That's what I think they're going to try to do.
So would this podcast be domestic terrorism then?
I mean, if
you're in Canada, Tim, so you're an international terrorist.
Yeah. It would be like, you know how, like, if you will remember how when that Dixie Chicks, when they were saying maybe we shouldn't be there and people were trying to label them traitors, and it really went like far out. I think that's probably how they're going to do it, because remember how people, when you would just question 9/11, people were like, oh, that's disrespectful and you're causing pain. And that's the justification.
That was
terrorism, right?
That was 9/11 fake truther Tucker Carlson said that too. And I wanted to ask
Yeah.
Tim Osmond as well on that topic if he was
Yeah, I
able.
wonder how Tim, because Tim, do you listen to the streamers and everything, like any of the popular streamers and everything, and see how they're pushing the narrative? Where if you're just trying to go outside the boundaries, you're labeled either what you're saying, but now a lot of more people are using the terrorist.
Yes. In fact, I primarily do my research as far as like I take for granted the mainstream's pretty much controlled and locked down. I study the alternative podcasters who pretend like they're going against the dominant paradigm, the challenging the system, when they're actually just the other side of the coin. But I pay attention because they're so uniform and predictable.
True.
And what I'm finding here is they're kind of cornered, because if they're unwilling to even discuss over the bloody guardrail, they're controlled, whether it's money or ignorance, which I don't think that's what it is. I think that they are not really investigating, but they're merely propagating. And there's a huge difference between a propagandist and a researcher, but they might look the same if they present their propaganda as research. And we're watching this with Charlie Kirk. It's never been clearer to me who's actually actively promulgating engineered narratives to keep people from calling it fake. They're really carefully guarding the whole squib thing, that's for sure.
Well,
they're guarding it through ignorance. If you could tell, that's how you could tell their propaganda is by feigning ignorance of a situation that you would think that they would know about, since they're in that type of business of researching, et cetera, et cetera. But they feign ignorance, and that's the magic spell that they throw at you.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know that. Yeah, and it's crazy. It's crazy because it's not working, but then it is, because a lot of people, they use it. They don't want to be called dumb, so what is that word?
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Hey Jay, thanks for calling in. I appreciate you.
Thank you for taking my call.
All right, there goes Jay. Jay needs his own show. He's very he's got lots to say, which we appreciate. But we got a big panel here tonight. I don't want to blow them off. All right. Here's another super chat for Tim Osmond. Tim, like all of us, needs love and money. If everyone who can donate does that, that would be great. Tim got me through some tough times. I love you, Tim, says Thomas Freeze. $5.
Hey, I appreciate it very much. And I'm confident now that the IPS think tank will continue indefinitely, because everyone's contributing something, whether it's even just your time, attention, your research. And this content, it doesn't generate itself. And I couldn't possibly do the amount of research that the entire think tank does. And some of the connections that I bring up here, if not all of them, are derived from people that are doing their own thing on the side, their own research, and they bring it to the tank and Discord. Like the latest stuff that's come up with Erica Kirk and the movie Heads of State is pretty mind-blowing for predictive programming, which I think is pretty mundane these days. But if you didn't catch this, in Snake Eyes, the blonde woman who's the center of the conspiracy, who's next to Charlie Kirkland when he gets shot in the neck, that blonde woman is played by an actress who's in 2025's Heads of State. And her role in this recent movie is Vice President Elizabeth Kirk. So Vice President Kirk, same actress who is next to Charlie Kirkland getting shot in the neck. And that's just another kind of one of these threads here where a few weeks ago I was like, why are people talking about Erica Kirk like she's going to be vice president under J.D. Vance? That's years in the future. It's ludicrous. But that was being promulgated. Now I know why. Again, it's just showing how there's this relationship between the spectacle in the news and the concurrent popular movies of the day. And this pattern is prevalent in every one of these psyops. And that's one of the things that...
Does she have an appearance similar to Erica Kirk also?
In Snake Eyes, she has the blonde hair, femme fatale, although she's wearing a wig. In this more recent one, Heads of State, no, but the name, VP Kirk, and she's at the center of controversy. So there's the same kind of she's at the center of the conspiracy in both of these. And it goes deeper if you throw in Tempest 2025 about the widow, because what happened, and this was, I just was shown this today, apparently in Heads of State, she gets shot in the neck and falls on the ground just like Charlie Kirk did. And this actually happens to the woman who's corresponding to Erica Kirk in The Tempest, in the opening scene of the movie, in a dream sequence. So we're just looking at the overlapping between movies 27 years apart, both of them directly correlating to the psyop of the day. I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you look at these things all together.
So who develops these scripts and these stories? And do you think they are just at an agency or intelligence agency and just brought to life and recycled and rekindled? And how do you think that works?
In my opinion, I think I call it the psyop entertainment complex. It could be NASA, but it really could be, because what we're talking about here is an entity, an organization whose job it is to write our history and have it executed through simulated events on the world stage. And the reason being, it's controlling not outer space, but inner space, our minds. And I think that this is primarily the purpose of what I call the psyop entertainment complex. It's getting us all in the same exact worldview. And so when you look at something like the Charlie Kirk thing, where you have this foreshadowing content in a movie from 27 years prior, that just tells you that the Charlie Kirk script existed while he was still in diapers, before he grew up and even took that role. So they're writing our history decades in advance. And this could be demonstrated repeatedly, especially if you look at the bigger psyops like 9/11 or COVID, where you have preparatory, predictive, foreshadowing content decades in the past. But the damning thing is the real-time content that's released that you can't just dismiss as cherry-picked.
So are you suggesting that the entity was born for this purpose?
No, I'm thinking that they had probably a wide pool of people to draw from, and that when he was recruited as he turned 18, he was a perfect fit. But he could have been drawn for a number of reasons. His dad was an architect at Trump's tower, just as the Erica Kirk worked for one of his agencies as a casting director. So I think that they have a pool of people they draw from. And just like spies would be planted and given a cover life, I think it's a situation like that.
This is why I have a question too from that point, right? So it could have been someone other than whoever Charlie Kirk really is to play that character, right? Is that what you're suggesting? Whoever
100%.
would fit it.
Exactly. Central casting. And he just happened to be the perfect person. He was choosing between going to universities or taking this other path, but his storyline, his entire story, pre-existed him. And this is the case with someone, I mean, I talk about this like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. Both of them have predictive characters in movies or in books that predated them ever ascending into these roles. So I look at these as roles on the world
But
stage.
presumably then there must be backups to these plans, because obviously, let's say in the case of the Donald Trump plan, there needs to be backup Donald Trumps in case one of the people playing the role disappears for some reason.
I consider that. I consider, what about these very important characters? What if they just have an accident? It spoils this long-term plot.
That's right. So there must be multiple people playing the role of Donald Trump.
Well, if you remember what Jonah Mendez said, she was the director of disguise at the CIA for 27 years. And she said she was in a room with 6 individuals wearing hyper-realistic masks of Saddam Hussein, and they all looked equally Saddam Hussein. So to me, that is actually just probably part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
CIA.
now you are moving to a level of conspiracy theory, which is going to be, which I think is obviously correct, by the way, but is really going to be, another flat Earth controversy.
It may, although I think what we can point out here is that what we're proposing is actually kind of mundane and more akin to spycraft and marketing than anything like, simulations or reptilians or secret societies. We're really just getting down to the infrastructure of media itself and how it's actually essentially a wing of government. But you're
also implying that governments are conceiving operations to perpetrate on the populations of the countries they're governing years in advance, and that we literally have a very hostile group of people that are operating in a way which is inimical to certainly to my interests.
And that's what you're saying too, Frank, right? That is why it's potentially as controversial as something as flat Earth.
That's right. I mean, really, what we're saying is when you pull down the things that you're saying now, you are. I mean, if you disagree, say it. But in my opinion, what you're saying is we have a group of people that are working over a long period of time with hostile intent towards me personally.
Now, this gets into the question of, we can agree that this would represent a form of dictatorship, a psychic dictatorship, totalitarian mind control. Then the second question I bring up, because we have to, we answer that. This is totalitarian. But secondly, is it malevolent or benevolent? And this goes back to the question of human nature. Do we need to be controlled by the terror of gods because of our terrible nature in order to keep us in line? Like, do we need this drama? Do we need the psyops? Do we need this sort of rigid control to maintain order? Or
well, the point then, okay, so who decides what benevolent is? Who is that arbiter?
Let's
accept your thesis that we need to be controlled. Who are the arbiters of this control required?
A self-enshrined elite who maintain power disparities through illiteracy and ignorance. And when I say illiteracy today, it would be visual illiteracy, where the consolidated.
So let's now take the next step. Then what we're saying is that this elite somehow has all the right answers about what's required.
I think that what we have is a one world religion, and it may have a benevolent purpose of uniting all mankind with a singular worldview for the purposes of world peace at some point. And they may achieve it through these means, mind war.
But my point is, how does one establish if it's benevolent or not? What's the indication of benevolence so far?
Okay, here's my indications. 17 plus years of mass school shootings and no evidence that anybody actually died. So replacing physical terror with psychological terror seems like tough love, but it doesn't seem as malevolent as actual murders going on, mass murders. So the fact that they're moving to simulation implies some kind of benevolence or some kind of, I don't know. That's my evidence.
And make no mistake, the 17 years of school shootings includes the Charlie Kirk event that occurred at a university, a school.
That's correct. Oh yeah, that's correct.
So I would argue that I don't see any benevolent outcome from having people take injections recently.
Okay. Okay, we got a caller inner.
Hold
You got no
time,
takers on that
38
point, Frank. You know where I stand
seconds.
on that. Okay,
Sure.
caller inner, where are you calling from and what's your name?
This is John the Beggar from the South Shore of the St. Lawrence Seaway.
John,
Praise the Lord.
how's
It's
the
John the
begging
Beggar.
going?
The begging's going pretty good right now.
You can make it more effective, John.
How do you want to make it more effective?
You just organize yourself to get, pretend to be shot at, and then open a little GoFundMe account, and you're in business.
Wow.
Psych everyone out that they're going around trying to kill beggars.
Yeah. That's just a little bit of financial advice straight from me.
Okay. Well, that Lincoln Rockwell fella, he also did something very unusual in World War II. He fought in two theaters, the Asian theater and the European theater. Nobody does that but Intel.
Right.
That proves he's Intel. And he even got together with the Nation of Islam, I don't think Louis Farrakhan was the head of it then, but another guy.
Yeah, the
and
predecessor.
Yeah, they had meetings with each other. So which means they're both military intelligence institutions.
I agree. So was William Bill Cooper.
Yeah, and another thing too, you have to look at Louis Farrakhan. My father used to claim this too. He claimed Louis Farrakhan was the late singer Sam Cooke of Motown. So,
wow. I love that.
I think you and Frank got to do a show because you two get
100%.
that interchangeable.
Okay, well, here's another thing. Who was at Aretha Franklin's funeral? Louis Farrakhan. She had been a real good friend of Sam Cooke. That's because that is Sam Cooke.
All right. I have no idea.
Thing,
I want to get Tim Osmond's take on interchangeability because I think it's a red herring, but
this is really good here, and this is a connection because Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy were also in a military unit in World War II. It was very unusual. It was integrated. You had black barracks next to white barracks and stuff like this. And it was for only people, I think it was 111 IQ and above you had to get into it. It was a military intelligence operation. And Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy always said they never saw each other in that unit. But there were white and black members of that unit that said they saw them talking constantly with each other. So there you go. That everything is all made up. Our culture, everything is run by different things of the government.
Yeah.
And I have to look at this, and I have to say these people are not benevolent at all. There's no proof.
They're nasty bastards. I want to get Tim Osmond's take on. Do you think they recycle entertainers and thought leaders and influencers, or are they different people?
You know, it wouldn't shock me because these things do interface. Like the higher up the pyramid you go, security clearance wise, you're going to have areas where you do have celebrities who are part of DHS operations, who are part of these events that necessarily require police, media, and hospitals, EMTs, all cooperating in these events. So there's a point where there's some overlap. So it would not shock me. I wouldn't think it would be that obvious at all times. But I mean, there are people who made convincing cases that, you know, Jim Morrison fake died. He had his intelligence father, and then he comes back as Rush Limbaugh after he said he was interested in doing such a thing.
He did. That was him.
But you brought up another point.
I don't believe that Rush is dead either.
I like the security clearance point too as to why it recycles. I think that is the key issue.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Security clearance societies. Anybody here care to guess how many years was Rush Limbaugh behind the golden mic at the EIB network?
33.
Yeah.
Bach Precision brings up a good point. Actor-based reality is ancient AF. Persians were wondering if the king was actually Xerxes, or as they called it, a pretender. 2,500 years ago, allegedly.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Wow.
Well, don't forget The Man in the Iron Mask. How old's that book? Must be 300 years old, is it?
You know what? This is interesting because someone had brought up, I think it was Leo Pirate talks about how Jesuit theater had even special effects centuries ago, like people burning on this, like setting people on fire and stuff. So, no,
and who invented Pepper's Ghost?
The same, probably.
Exactly.
And the caller brought up something about Intel connections. And I think this is actually a good rule of thumb. When you look at somebody like Charlie Kirk and you're like, well, is this real or fake? Well, look who's surrounding him at all times. And all these other people in his circle, like Jack Posobiec or these other parallel organizations, all these people who know him, Candace Owens, etc. These people were all participants in the Butler PSYOP, in the January 6th PSYOP, and in every other major PSYOP where they have a position. So they're not going to kill a Christ actor, nor are they going to literally have one of their principal actors just randomly taken out. And the fact that he's in that circle, I call it, the bread and circuses. Well, these are bread and circus clowns. And bread and circus clown, I don't think, as a rule, I don't think they kill their clowns.
I don't think they do either. And I have another thing. I knew a guy, he's deceased now, a black fella, and he knew Sam Cooke's family, the family of the late Sam Cooke. And I presented this theory to him, and he said their mental outlook on the world is exactly like Louis Farrakhan's.
Okay. Well,
so I'm looking at that and saying, wow.
Wasn't Sam Cooke tied into Elvis somehow, some way?
Well, he died early, didn't he? He died at the same.
Motown.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was another Sam type. All right. Anything else before we run along, John?
Nope. I just wanted to say hi to everyone. And I know once you said about Lincoln Rockwell, it started things going off in my head. He got killed in a laundromat, I think.
All right. In the dryer or the washer?
I don't know. They washed him and dried him, pressed him before they sent him on to his new role.
He probably had a dime stuck down his throat.
Yes, it was. He was assassinated at age 49 outside a laundromat in Arlington, Virginia, by John Patler, a former ANP member he had expelled for suspected Marxist leanings. Wow. And Patler was convicted and served only 8 years in prison for murder. Wow. They don't really value certain people, I guess.
Yeah, well, he got tired of hiding out, so they had to bring him out. They had to get him out somehow.
Yeah. His contract was cheap. Okay, thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
See you, John.
Rail.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Rallis Unra is saying, what? The other YouTube chat that's not on Fakeologist 3. I think you're thinking of Fakotube chat, fakotube.com. That's our own chat. That's the other chat. And of course, there is a Discord chat, Fakeologist Discord, shortfake.com/Discord if you want to join that. We've had our Discord for a while. And what else? If there's anything in the chat you guys want to comment on, feel free. Realm Trotter, recycled lifetime actors just make sense. Why waste that outstanding talent and years of grooming? And I wanted to show Clues Forum, which is a 9/11 research site. And Simon is finally stepping back into the video analysis area, which he's so good at. And he was showing an interview with Charlie Kirk. And this was some interview he did. And Simon loves the hands and observing the size of the hands. And he's saying this is probably an AI individual in this particular interview. And he's analyzing the hands and the fingers. They're way too long. They're off color. They are, to say the least, quite creepy or spider looking. So are we getting a mix of reality and video, CGI, AI, video generation, Tim Osman? Have you looked into that?
It's the technology is obviously there. There's some podcasters that I follow who do these like live YouTube videos for years, and all of a sudden I find out, she doesn't really move as much as she used to, and she has less dead air. So I started noticing that some people I listen to have actually replaced themselves with these AI generated avatars that do the same thing, but they're able to regurgitate their old content and then upload a crazy amount of videos. And so, no, obviously it wouldn't be a surprise at all if some of these individuals are both, because these are operations. You look at these world stage characters. It's not like he's just doing his thing, moving through the world. No, he's like Truman in a Truman Show, but instead of being ignorant, he's working for Christoph. He's like part of the show.
Well, and another example of that is I'm using Google Chrome to stream the show now, and when I somehow managed to get Forbes highlights pumping onto my Chrome, and I haven't worked out how to block it, but 2 out of 3 articles have a picture of Donald Trump on them. Mm-hmm. Now, there is just not possible for one man to do all the things that Donald Trump is supposed to be doing. It's not possible. It's like the Beatles' timeline on their record output. It just doesn't stand.
Yeah, there's too much. There's just too much content coming out from one individual.
Yeah,
especially an almost 80-year-old.
Yeah, it has to be most of it just robot content. What do you call it? AI content? Just generated.
Or he has a big team that's running the AI and running the Twitter.
That's what I mean. But it's the guy obviously can't be doing anything. He must be sleeping most of the day, surely.
Well, one thing that I've been emphasizing here is that you can look at predictive programming as product placement for future psyops. And you think about how many cameos has Donald Trump had? how big is his presence in the culture before he ever got into politics?
Yeah.
And if you look at the whole body of it, it's like he's been a fixture in our minds, whether we wanted him to be or not, for a long time in various masks. So that's all product placement. And then it becomes more believable when he just suddenly materializes. But these are not organic characters. They're inserted onto our collective timeline. But no, in my opinion, I think you're right about this. These are just, like I said, it's Truman in a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Do you think some of the Trump, I think they were talking about one of the last Trump speeches from the Oval Office may have been AI? I mean, Tim Osmond, this is something you want to do is use bots to promulgate and propagate your content, because you're a one-man operation, so you need automation to help you. Would you do a podcast with an AI video of yourself with all your content, just regurgitating and recycling in some way? And do you think Trump did that as well?
I think I might actually end up doing that at some point, but I'm certain Trump does it because they're very Machiavellian and they play by certain rules. Like when they're weak, they try to look strong. And I just think that, well, maybe he's getting older and tired, but they still want to churn out an unbelievable amount of content. And all it takes is a written speech fed into this thing, and you just export it, and he's sitting at his desk giving this speech, and nobody would know the difference. And so, yeah, I think this is definitely part of propping up this idea that he's that busy and he's doing all this work. Why wouldn't they make use of such a technology? And this is probably more common than we think. So whoever's looking at Charlie Kirk's hands here, I think they're onto something, because it's not perfect.
Simon Shack.
Okay, Simon Shack. Well, you know what? We have to be aware of the fact, though, that they're going to perfect this stuff. And so we have to go beyond just the visual flaws to detect the fakery, because they're improving so fast.
And one thing I was thinking about, Trump has dominated the media since a year or two before he became president for the first time. In other words, his message is daily and maybe 2-3 times a day. And I think the effect that has is there is no real opposition, political or otherwise, getting through the Trump message. We have been,
and even when he wasn't president, he was getting more than Biden, as you've often pointed out.
Yeah, well, yeah, so it went from, this is his third presidency, because he was sort of the de facto shadow president for 4 years during Biden, no doubt about it. But the power of propaganda is such that every other competing message has been drowned out by all Trump all the time. So even the people that hate him talk about him on the daily. And I think it's really hurt their mental ability to logic and reason, because he has been a one man or one business propaganda machine for 10 years.
You know, something to keep in mind here is that we only have limited bandwidth, and that goes for all of us. And I think they're able to be the dominant influence and dominate our experience by force memeing what they want us to pay attention to. I mean, there was a week a couple of years ago where I couldn't avoid Taylor Swift, but I think this is intentional. So instead of Big Brother staring at you, you have the present face of it, which is Trump, who's already a reality TV show guy. But they take up so much of your bandwidth that it does, in fact, inform your perspective. And this is why I think that when it comes to the whole world stage thing, it's really about almost like what they selectively focus on more than the stuff they even fabricate.
Right. When you said the Taylor Swift, right, I'm not a fan of her. My presumption is that you weren't either, but you're correct. There was a window in there that every time you looked, Taylor Swift was on the news or on social media.
Yeah, or magazines. I go to the grocery store and I turn around, there's 5 Taylor Swift faces looking at me. And that's the power of media.
As far as my granddaughter's concerned, it's all Taylor Swift. And I had to watch half an hour of Taylor Swift on Wednesday. It's not going away.
Well, I don't know how old your granddaughter is, but
3.5.
Well, we opened up the show with the Greystones, which are grade 6ers, 10 or 12-year-olds. And I really think they need to get some more wholesome actual musicians that don't lip sync and can actually play music and have talent. So I'll put a link to that, and maybe you can forward that to your granddaughter and get inspired to learn how to play an instrument instead of watching just some really mediocre synthesized, I would say, propaganda, because I'm sure
Well,
Tim Osmond would say.
I'll try and flood it with the Belmont rhythmic singers.
All right, or Tim Osmond, they use singers to send their messages as well, I'm guessing.
Oh, that's another great area is Metascript in music, where you often find that there's musical counterparts to concurrent programming. And recently I had pointed this out, how Marilyn Manson's touring One Assassination Under a God. And it seemed like not only the perfect backdrop to what just happened, but if you look at the lore behind that video and his older video from 1999 called Coma White, in that video, he portrays himself as JFK. But guess where he gets shot? In the neck.
The foot?
In the neck.
Mm,
And so what I'm saying is that his music has consistently at various points been associated with big psyops like Littleton, the JFK Jr. crash. And so I was thinking there's got to be a reason why this idea of a sacrifice, starting this tour off with this song, it just seemed like, could this be a backdrop to something? And I was expecting a Trump thing, but none of the predictive content suggests he ever gets taken out. It's just an attempt. So now it makes sense to me that this was a long-term engineered psyop. And even back when Coma White was released, it was already kind of foreshadowing this, the next JFK. And it showed him getting shot in the neck, which I think is a nice touch there.
Do you find any discrepancy with the fact that, according to the narrative of the Trump shooting, he was shot in the ear versus the neck?
Well, no, I actually think that it was referencing Charlie Kirk, that the One Assassination Under God theme, even though it was associated with JFK, I don't think it was actually referencing Trump, but that this thing was actually going to be the backdrop against this new JFK situation. Because, yeah, of course, Trump was in none of the predictive content. Is he taken out?
So going back to your benevolent idea, Tim, in what way do you think all of these things are benevolent to the people of the United States, or anywhere for that matter, at the moment?
I don't necessarily say it's benevolent. I think it's totalitarian. I think it's tantamount to a one world religion. But as far as the purpose of it, I don't think the Truman Show was a benevolent system. I think he was a fool until he achieved enlightenment. So I kind of think that we're all in a system of a live world order, and we've all been made fools. I just don't know the overall purpose of it. Like, is this necessary because mankind is a mix of evil and good, or is this some kind of nefarious thing to prevent us from, I don't know what? Not really quite sure.
So are you familiar with the biblical model that fits this?
I think it's very Gnostic in a lot of ways. I think if you look at the...
But are you familiar with the idea that in the Bible it says that after Christ has ruled the world for 1,000 years, Satan is released to deceive the nations once more?
That does, in fact, resonate very strongly with the way the world is run. If you look at the iconography, the symbolism, and the general themes.
I mean, it may be being operated to that script, even if the Bible isn't true.
It could be, absolutely. It does seem to fit that. It does seem to be an apt description, especially when you go into the nuance of the predictive content where they get into symbolism. And you're like, okay, clearly
100%.
It's very consistent. Dark City, The Strangers, The Design Authority, and Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. There's always this presence of this shadowy brotherhood, black clad, brim hat, wide brim hats, but their role is control over time and space. So there does seem to be a presence here, but whether or not it's benevolent, I mean, I just think it's better than the red pill version of things being true.
Okay. Well, we've come up to about an hour, and I like to do about an hour, and I know Tim Osmond sometimes goes on and continues his stream on his own channel, but do we have any final comments to?
Well, I have to say that I have particularly enjoyed the conversation today. It's been very stimulating for me, and thank you, Tim Osmond, and is it CSR, CSL, CSI?
Yeah, CSL.
CSI.
Right.
Yeah,
it's all good. If I can say, now that I've got the opportunity, Girl earlier, just a few minutes ago, while we were talking about Trump, and then we mentioned Taylor Swift, brought up a good point that I would like to hear Tim Osmond and maybe even you, Frank's point or commentary on the cult of personality, right? They identified it as the cult of personality. Of course, there's an 80s song for that too. How does that factor into what we're talking about here?
I think it is the method.
they use
agree.
these characters to promulgate messages.
The only way that Trump can be successful is by building up his cult personality. It is the same as Elvis Presley. These people are created, and everything is put in. All of the stories are put in, the same as Camelot for JFK.
You're right. The cult of personality is the new imperial cult. It's the same tech. It's the same dynamic there, and
it's not that new. It was used for Nero. It was used, as we've just talked about, for Xerxes.
Exactly, the imperial cult. Well, I want to say thanks, CSL and Frank the Salt and Fakeologists. I look forward to more of these, and I like the idea of a concise hour because it gets to be very dense with information and ideas when we have these time constraints.
No, and you do your 2 and 3 hour streams of consciousness where you really bring a lot of material. I don't know how you do it. It takes it's quite a skill to be able to do what you do on an ongoing basis. You just have so much content. But I guess,
and of course, we should let the audience know that Psygirl is Lynn Ertel.
Oh, Lynn Ertel, that's correct.
Oh, wait, that's Lynn?
That is
Lynn
the
Ertel,
Lynn Ertel.
Yeah. Oh, that is the Lynn.
When you get questions
like
questions like that, CSL, you know what you're with the superstars of the FAKO world.
Thank you so much.
She
Turn it up, Lynn. Turn it up.
Yeah, she is the Psy girl, and she's the one we're talking about. All right, we're gonna go out with a little more of Baker Street, which was my original theme song of Wake Up with Ab in 2012. This is 2025. 13 years later, we're still talking about the same things, but with a little twist of whatever the flavor of the day is or the psyop of the day. And I want to thank Tim Osmond of ips.monster. Go there and support independent content because he does a lot of it. And I think he makes a living off this. So you really need to support him. And that's IPS Monster, and all the links are there. And now he is on Reddit. So go to Reddit, and I put all the links in tonight's show notes. Go to the Reddit, and let's light that thing up and see how long that'll last, if it can get some good traction. And also thank Frank the Salt Guy
Thanks for the opportunity. It was great.
Yeah, and CSL from America somewhere.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And again, Tim Osmond. Tim Osmond, have a good one. We'll be in touch. I'm off next week. This is the last show of the week for me, and we'll be off next week, so we'll be back whenever that is. So, Tim Osmond, thank you so much again.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Everyone have a great night.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Sayonara.
Take care.
And the one-night stands, and then he'll settle down to a quiet little town and forget about everything. 'Cause you know he'll always keep moving. No, he's never gonna stop moving. 'Cause he's rolling, he's a rolling stone. When you wake up, it's a new morning. The sun is shining, it's a new morning, and you're